All right, it's time for another action-packed, exciting hour of the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Rewatch-Along Project. This is podcasting the way it used to be and the way you like it. This show is a production of the Something Else Podcasting Network, and it is episode number 078 of Smoky Mountain Wrestling from July 24th, 1993, taped June 28th, 1993, at the Council High School in Council, Virginia. My name is Arya, and joining me, as always, is the Hank Yarbo to my Brent Leroy. It's Trey. Trey, how the heck are you today?
I'm excited. I'm doing a podcast with a real life author.
Yes, a kind of, sort of, soon to be published author. Because, yes, in case I haven't driven you mad already with my countless plugs for it on all forms of social media, I have written a book. And that book is available for pre-order right now. It is very simple. It's a project I've been working on for quite a while. It's called 40 Years of Pay-Per-View. This is book one, covering 1985 through 1990. Basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. I look at every single pay-per-view during that period. I review it. I talk about all the backstage and behind the scenes drama. I talk about how Vince McMahon managed to bully pay-per-view companies for years, and then at the end of the day, he had to back down to them himself in 1990. I talk about the eight different booking committee changes that the company most people know as WCW went under during the same period. Because, yeah, they changed bookers about as often as they had a pay-per-view. It was ridiculous at one point. Um, and it is, I mean, in my completely biased opinion, it is an incredibly fun read. It is available on both Kindle Unlimited and just straight up Kindle for $5. I understand if you can't buy it, but I do appreciate any plugs. And if you do read it, please give me some feedback, preferably a five-star review there on Amazon. But yeah, I'm not, lying when I say this is like a lifetime in the making. I've been talking about writing a book since I was a teenager. I love to write, and I got my love for writing got knocked in the head one point by a creative writing teacher in high school who told me that I was being too creative, and she never explained what the fuck that meant. And it honestly
What the
took
fuck does
away a
that
lot of
mean?
I still don't fucking know. It's been over 20 years and I still have no fucking idea. And so,
Mystery.
yeah. And it took me a while to just break that out of my head because, like, it kept nagging at me for a while. Because, like, anytime I'd write something, it's like, what's wrong with this? Because it's like, obviously, something has to be wrong with it. And I'd quit as soon as I'd start. But this one, I apparently found the right thing because this one I dove right in. And I finished the book a few weeks ago, got done all the proofreading, got done the editing, and now it's available on Amazon. And it's fucking amazing, in my opinion, that this is a real thing now. Um, and hopefully everyone gets a chance to check it out. Um, And I'll be honest, and I'll tell you how the story of the project began. So towards the end of last year, I realized that 2025 was the 40-year anniversary of Vince McMahon bringing professional wrestling slash sports entertainment onto pay-per-view. And I thought, hey, this would make an exciting podcast series where I would create a not a GoFundMe, but oh my God, what the hell's that stupid website called that people have, a Patreon,
Uh, yeah.
or I would create a Patreon, charge it $2 a month, and I would release a daily podcast reviewing every single pay-per-view in order. And that's actually how it started. And that's a lot of where a lot of my editing had to be done because a lot of the things I'd written up until around June were to write a pod or to do a podcast about. And I basically had to do a lot of rewriting to turn it into a book form, in addition to finishing off what I did. Now, once it got turned into a book series, weirdly enough, right around the time that you came on to the show, um, I um, I decided how to break it up because obviously reviewing 40 years of pay-per-view in one book, this fucking thing is going to be 10 miles long. So I wanted to break it up, and I was originally going to do 85 through 89. I figured, 5 years, that works. And ended up being like 21 shows. And then I'm like, okay, so the next one, for whatever reason, I decided that the next one I want to do ends with 1994. But from 1990 to 1994, there are so fucking many shows. It's not even funny. And so I figured, okay, let me saw off 1990 and add it to book one, and I'll do 91 through 94 next time. Spoiler alert, that's still to come. Um, and so that's how it came to be this. And yeah, like so many people have helped me out, and Trey, like you especially, like you were there, a lot of giving me ideas, a lot of, reading shit that I've read or reading shit that I wrote and, giving me some editing, giving me some lines. And I really appreciate that. And I wanted to thank you here on the show.
Hey, no problem. Proud of you.
Thank you. And like I said, I'll be honest, I cannot believe that I've actually finished. Like like last night, like as we're recording this, like I've been like the last 2 days, ever since I got done proofreading, I have been on a tear because I want to release this on Monday, and I'll explain why in a second. I've been on a tear to get everything in place. And so I have not slept a whole lot in the last 2 days because I've been staying up way too late to format everything and to finalize it and get the cover and do this, that, and the other thing. And, you know, so tonight when we get done this, I'm gonna sleep like there's no fucking tomorrow. I must tell you that.
You deserve it.
So today's Thursday as we're dropping this. This Tuesday, the 29th, is my 40th birthday. And since it's been a lifelong goal of mine to write a book, I, at the beginning of September, when I was about halfway done, maybe a little bit more than halfway done, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking release this on October 28th, the day before my 40th birthday. So I'm still in my 30s when I finish writing my book and publish it. And when this thing was taking way longer than I should have, that was what kept me going was I need to get this done before I turn 40. And I fucking did. And like I said, I'm really fucking happy. And it's funny because like I've been watching so much wrestling lately. Like it's just been like so fucking much. To like now when I'm like it's the end of the day and like I'm sitting at home, I'm like, what the hell do I do now? Like I feel like because I'm not watching, you know, WrestleMania 6 or something. It's like I'm behind or something, which of course isn't the case. And so after this book drops, I'm going to take a couple of weeks just to inhale and exhale, probably before I start work on the next one.
See, what you need to do, you need to watch something mindless. Like you need to binge like Corner Gas again, or just like something easy to watch that you can have on and let your brain defrag. Because like I get like wrestling overload sometimes too, and the key is just you gotta watch something that's not wrestling. So take a couple of
I,
weeks, and other than like the stuff that we do for the shows, just watch something that isn't wrestling. I think some
uh,
of us forget that we need to do that sometimes.
yeah, last month when Netflix released the Mr. McMahon documentary, I started doing my annual Gilmore Girls rewatch, which I mean I don't need Netflix. I have the DVDs, I have the shit downloaded. It's like I don't need Netflix to watch Gilmore Girls, but it's easy when you already have it there to just press next episode. But
I
so yeah, I'm
go ahead and finish.
I was gonna say I'm almost done season four, which tells you that I may have watched a lot of wrestling, but I also watched a lot of not wrestling this past month.
Yeah. I've been doing my biannual Mrs. Brown's Boys rewatch, which if you don't know what Mrs. Brown's Boys is, it is a very silly Irish comedy on the BBC that's like in front of a live audience, and it's this old man, well, he's not, it's dressed in drag, and it's mostly like him and his family doing the show, and it's just a very like silly, goofy, nonsensical, dumb show, and I love it.
Well, speaking of silly, goofy, nonsensical, sometimes dumb show, we got some Smoky Mountain to watch.
Boy,
Um,
don't we?
and in case it's the person who's ever listened to this show, what we do here, it is really quite simple. We watch every single episode of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, beginning with episode number one on February 1st, 1992, and we go all the way to episode number 200 on November 26th, 1995. We talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, the so-so, the all right, the amazing, the tremendous, the out of the world, the unbelievable, the unforgettable, the unremarkable, the one of a kind, the stuff you'll remember forever, the stuff you've already forgotten, and everything in between. We watch some matches, listen to some promos, and talk about some angles, and just have fun talking about old school wrestling for about an hour. And then at the end of the show, I tell you what else is happening in the world of wrestling because I can tell you July 24th, 1993 until I'm blue in the face, but this gives you some context to where you may say, "Oh, I remember that. Is that what was going on at this time?" And I say, "Yes. Yes, it was."
Indeed.
So, this episode it has it has some issues. It has some editing problems, and we will get to it because there is I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but it seems pretty obvious to me that there's an entire segment that had to be edited out, and then a brand new
Yes.
segment got edited in for reasons we'll get to. Um, but for now, let's go to the intro here with Bob Caudle and Dutch Mantel, and I want you to listen to how they introduce the different segments on this show.
All right, it's time once again for Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Professional wrestling the way it used to be and the way you like it, fans. Hi, I'm Bob Caudle along with Dr. Dutch Mantell, and we got a great hour in store for all the fans this week, Dutch. The Rock and Roll Express are going to be in action right here during this hour, as well as we're going to see the Bruise Brothers. That great big team of Jim Cornette, they're going to be in action. We're going to see highlights from Summer Blast. And down and dirty, who you got this week?
I have the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Champion, Tracy Smothers, and he's going to make some very interesting comments. I'm not going to tell you what they are right now. You're going to have to pay attention and watch.
All right, and what about our Beat the Champ?
You know, I might even pull my name out this week because I have trained all week. My leg is a lot better.
I notice you're not limping.
I was severely disappointed last week when I couldn't wrestle. But this week, the name that I'm going to pull out is going to be...
Yeah.
There it is. What's it say?
It says Tim Horner.
Tim Horner will face the Dirty White Boy today. Beat the champ.
All right, fans, that's going to be a great one, a great hour. Stay with us. Right now, let's go to the ring.
All right, so there is believe it or not, a lot to unpack in those 61 seconds. Um, First of all, they announced that Smoky Mountain champion Tracy Smothers is going to be on Down and Dirty with Dutch with some interesting comments. Yeah,
Yes.
that's it doesn't quite work out that way, but we'll get to that. And then, and this, I know I was messaging you. Like, I'll be honest. like I watched the show over the weekend. It's Tuesday. So the weekend is 2 days ago. I honestly forgot that I watched this show until about 30 minutes ago when I panicked and I'm like, oh fuck, did I even watch this show?
Oh,
Um,
that's
but yeah, but once I saw my notes, I'm like, I remembered messaging you at some point saying that I was mad at the show. And let's start right from the beginning. First of all, Dirty White Boy, like, is the Beat the Champ TV champion. Now, if you listened to the show last week, and if not, what the hell's wrong with you? But White Boy, okay, yeah, it was White Boy. You know, we're all playing tongue in cheek here, but White Boy came out under mask as the Mighty Yankee and won the TV title from Bobby Blaze. And I'm like, okay, this could be cute because I mean it's a TV title. At worst, it's gonna last 5 weeks, so it's like, okay, it's a cute little thing. And you know, the Mighty Yankee is gonna be here every week with Dirty White Boy denying that it's him, yada yada yada. But no, this week they weren't even pretending. They just like flat out was like, it's Dirty White Boy, and he's gonna be facing Tim Horner today.
I was disappointed that they didn't even uh they didn't even think about carrying on with this Mighty Yankee thing.
And the funny thing is that, like, okay, you know, these shows are obviously taped weeks and weeks in advance, but it's not like this was an entirely different taping. This is the third episode that was taped that night in Council High School. So, like, right after the last episode, which wasn't it main evented by Mighty Yankee versus Bobby Blaze? If not, it was like late in the show, so it's not like, oh man, we gotta change track on this one already. But yeah, I wasn't thrilled with this one to be perfectly honest, especially since why did they bother doing Mighty Yankee if they're just gonna ignore it immediately anyway?
It was not the main event last week. The main event was Tim Horner and Chris Candido.
That's right. Just uh, I think there's a reason why we need to go back to our old taping schedule, as you've been saying. It's like it's easy to forget everything from week to week to week.
It is, and then also like we go off on tangents about topical stuff enough that I feel weird with like why are we talking about something happened today on a show that's not gonna go up for another 10 days?
Can you believe that CM Punk Drew McIntyre Hell in a Cell match yesterday?
That was what that was several days ago now, actually. That was like what 12 days ago? I can't count.
I think it was like the beginning of the month. Today's the 22nd. It was the 5th, so it was
Oh
17
yeah, it
days
was like
ago.
okay. I like that match.
Oh yeah, it was really good. I really liked it, but it's one of those matches I think other people liked more than I did. I still need to go back and rewatch Wrestle Dream because I was drunk during that show. Um, and like I was drunk enough to like not entirely process what was happening, but not drunk enough to not realize that that three-way was fucking out of this world.
It was. But Takeshita and Speedball Mike Bailey had a fucking tremendous match on night one of the Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling shows. Takeshita and Josh Alexander had a very good match on night two as well. And there's also Giselle Shaw and Miyu Yamashita on night one, and then Giselle and Athena on night two. But Takeshita and Bailey stole both of those shows.
That's good. I mean, I have you seen much Mike Bailey?
Uh, a moderate amount.
Yeah, he's been on Impact for I mean at least 2 years now, and he's just fucking amazing. Like last year, Bound for Glory, he wrestled Ospreay when Ospreay was still deciding who to go to, and like it's like 12 minutes long, but you're gonna rarely see a 12-minute match that good.
When
Like,
I was watching today, I was watching Bailey's match with El Phantasmo from night two, and it occurred to me, I don't think I ever watched that match with Osprey, and I need to go and watch that probably.
oh yeah, it is like well worth going out of your way to see. Even if you're someone who pays for it, it's well worth paying for it.
Yeah.
Um, and actually, Bound for Glory is Saturday, and he's wrestling Vikingo for the X Division
Oh
title.
shit. That sounds awesome.
Yep. Um, so yeah, TNA Bound for Glory this Saturday from Detroit. Check it out. The 1 year anniversary of them announcing that Impact is no longer Impact. It's TNA again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going back to Smoky Mountain, because which one of us ever need to stay on topic here? We got our opening match. It is the Rock and Roll Express versus Jimmy Jannetty and not that Jeff Daniels. Um, Rock and Roll attacked Jannetty and Daniels while their theme song played as if they were Bryan Danielson at Wrestle Dream, because that match started with Final Countdown playing. Because hey, if you're gonna spend $200,000 on the song, that fucking song is playing whether or not you've decided to start your match or not.
Yeah.
Um, However, unlike Danielson, Ricky and Robert did not do the JOB here. Caudle and Dutch debate the Bruise Brothers wanting to forfeit the tag titles to the Heavenly Bodies, but they aren't allowed to, with the theory that Bullet Bob still has power, which I think is an interesting theory because, I mean, yeah, he's not the official commissioner, but he was a part of the board of directors. You don't think they're still going to listen to him or, when he's pushing for something?
Uh yeah, maybe. I don't know. I thought that was just I thought that was more of Dutch speculating or accusing more than just a flat out statement that was the reason.
Yeah, I literally did not write much about this match. Did you write anything?
Let me see what I wrote. Rock and Roll are in a bad mood this week after getting fucked out of the tag titles, and I thought it was kind of fun to see them just whipping ass because it's a very atypical Rock and Roll Express match, and they went with the double drop kick in a little over 2 minutes.
So every time the Rock and Roll Express cut a promo, we joked that Ricky Morton cut a
Yeah,
promo while, you know, some random person stands near him. Well, do you know that some
not
random
this week.
person actually talks
Yeah.
occasionally? Let's go to both Ricky and Robert Gibson, who have something to say.
Hey fans, with us right now, the Rock and Roll Express, Robert Gibson, Ricky Morton, charter members right now of Armstrong's Army, right, Robert?
That's right. You know, Bob, I heard Dutch Mantell say former champions.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, Dutch and everybody else. That's just for a little while. We got something called a double drop kick. 442 pounds inside your head, and big guys, you will go down.
That's right. And to you, Jimmy Cornette, they say the cream always rises to the top. But in your case, it's the scum in the sewer. Now, you can go out here and you can hide behind those two big old Bruise Brothers. But one thing about it, they might be bad. They talk about them big old cobras they got. But you remember one thing, baby. These right here are deadly. So it don't matter us. You bring it on anytime, any place. We want our belts back. The fans want their belts back. And we're going to get them back.
Rock and Roll Express fans.
So, I mean, it was, I don't want to say mundane, I want to say, but it's like it was a Ricky Morton promo. And hey, he didn't say rock and roll is here to stay. We ain't here to play. So write this one down because I don't think it happens too often. But
Uh,
go ahead.
I didn't realize that Robert could speak.
Well, there's a reason he doesn't speak that much because I mean, it was a lot of mumbling. He did say that they would hit the Bruise Brothers with the double drop kick and win the belts back. And yeah,
Mhm.
it was nothing to write home about, but it got the point across.
Yeah, indeed.
All right. So from here, we're going to go to highlights of Summer Blast, where Tracy Smothers defends the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight title against primetime Brian Lee. And so we're going to go to the finish of that match in Johnson City, commentated by future Smoky Mountain lead announcer Chip Kessler, because of course he did. Um, Previewing the death of Smoky Mountain, by the way. And we've mentioned this before. He does not look like a man named Chip. I know
Yeah.
first I'm skipping ahead to the promo we're gonna see, but also like I'm face shaming him. That is not the face of a man named Chip. Like,
I did not know this man's name, but I would not have guessed Chip.
yeah, it's like I don't care if that's his shoot name or not. That's why they invented work names. Like Tammy Witch with a capital B, her name isn't actually Tammy Fitch. We came up with a name that sounded a little bit better than Sitch, you know? So it's okay. We could have changed Chip's name to something else. But
Yeah.
anyway, mind you, we could have found a better fucking announcer, and I'll talk about that later. But so this was, I don't know, like I and I'm gonna blame Kessler for all of this because he's not really following along, or at least following along as well as he should have. Because Tammy slips Brian Lee something, and I thought she was slipping him a foreign object, but then nothing happened. Like Lee takes a funny looking bump off of a backdrop. I mean, it's not really that funny, but like he takes a backdrop and he like goes off to the side, which is not typical backdrops SOP. Mark Curtis goes flying. Tammy gets in and tries to spray hairspray in Tracy's eyes, but he turned it around and then tried to spank her. But Primetime Brian Lee put on the black glove, which is what I'm assuming Tracy slipped to him, and he knocks Tracy the fuck out for the win. So yes, we have a new champion. The king is dead. Long live the new king. Primetime Brian Lee, a two-time Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Champion.
Yes, that is what happened. I don't
I'll,
know.
I'll be. Mhm.
What's that? I don't know. I'm trying to do I have any commentary on this? I don't, you kind of pointed out, but I did note that Tracy threatening to spank her was a babyface spot, and Brian Lee saving her was a heel spot. That was,
Mhm.
you know, it is what it
Th-
is.
Yeah. Welcome to pro wrestling sometimes. Um, but uh, oh my God, I forgot what I was going to say now. I guess it must have been a lie because I can't remember what the hell it is. So while I try to remember, let's go to Chip Kessler, who is standing by with our new champion, Primetime Brian Lee and Tammy Witch with a B.
All right, we're back here at Freedom Hall Civic Center with the new Smoky Mountain Wrestling Champion, Primetime Brian Lee, his manager, Tammy Fitch. But, Brian, let me ask you, some of the people at ringside are saying something about a glove, a black glove you pulled out.
Hey. We did not have any black glove. People may say we have a black glove. There's no black glove. We beat Tracy Smothers fair and square. And you know what? Now I have the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Championship. I have the greatest wrestler I ever walked the face of this earth. And I'm now the first lady of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And you know what? I'm going to be making some changes around here, bringing my own staff in, just like Hillary Clinton did when she became president.
That's right. And Tracy Smothers, how's it feel, baby? You know what you're looking at? You're looking at the first lady of professional wrestling, and you're looking at the only one, Primetime Brian Lee. I had the belt last year, and now I have it again. Like I told everyone before up in these bumpkin hills, I said Tracy Smothers is a small man, and I've been walking in a small man's shadow, but I'm not small anymore. I'm standing tall and doing it all. And me and Tammy Finch here, well, we've got one thing done. We've got the belt, but I'll tell you what else we got to do. We got to go do a little celebrating, baby. So see you later.
So, Primetime Brian Lee, what do you think about him being a bit goofy? Because like he's behind Tammy and he's fluffing his hair and he's jumping around like he's got ants in his pants, and it's like it is so different from not just the babyface Brian Lee we've seen for the past year, but pretty much every incarnation of Brian Lee that I've ever seen. This is really, really different. And I don't know if that's good or bad.
I think that this is perhaps a more effective heel character for East Tennessee, Eastern Kentucky. Like I see how the people of that region would respond negatively to that sort of character, as is the intention.
that he's being pussy whipped by this little northern girl who is obsessed with Hillary Clinton, which by the way, lines that didn't age well about Hillary bringing in her own staff when she was elected president. It's like
Oh,
I mean
yes.
I get the joke that it's really Bill and whatnot, but it's like yeah that
Yeah,
poor
there.
poor Hillary.
I was very young in the 90s, but I do remember just conversations that I had or overheard with adults that there was a lot of sentiment that Hillary had a lot to do with the administration.
And I mean especially the part of the world you lived in, I imagine that came up often enough.
Yeah, Hillary wasn't hated in Arkansas until much later.
Huh, that's interesting. I would have thought they would have, even though they elected him governor and then voted for him for president. I would have thought they didn't look too kindly upon him marrying a northern girl.
I, they were married before he was ever governor. They met in college. I don't think it was ever an issue. Or no, they wouldn't have been in college. They went to different colleges, but
Interesting.
I don't exactly know the. I don't. Do you ever hear the? It's like one of my wife's favorite comedy bits ever. John Mulaney's bit about meeting Bill Clinton when he was a kid.
Yes, I actually was just listening to that the other day.
Fucking outstanding. Sounds
Yes.
great bit.
Uh, so did you know that Jim Cornette is fat?
That's what I've heard.
And Bullet Bob reiterated this during the local promo, but unlike his annoying children, he at least made it quasi interesting. But still, at the end of the day, it was Jim Cornette's fat. I'm like,
Are
great.
you telling me? Are you telling me that Bob is the best promo in the family?
I know, I know you're surprised to hear that because I mean, even with Road Dogg's charisma, it's like he can only do so much.
Yeah. Road Dogg said the same thing every week.
Well, it's like Enzo Amore, except Road Dogg was a lot less annoying.
I got a lot of resistance when I compared that team to the New Age Outlaws, but I still think it's dead on.
I think, well, I mean, I don't know when you made that comparison, but I mean, Big Cass, I mean, he's gotten better, but in this comparison, you're comparing him to Billy Gunn, who, while not the greatest wrestler in the world, is certainly far more capable than Big Bill, W. Morrissey, Big Cass, pretty much has ever been. So I could see that, and also that Road Dogg is a lot less annoying than Enzo, but I can totally see where you're coming from. Because I mean, especially once you the first breakup of Enzo and Cass, it's like Cass, like no one fucking wants to watch Big Cass. It's like there's a
No.
reason why the only nice thing Enzo could say about him was that he was 7 feet tall.
I think I was at the pay-per-view and they had their singles match. Was that Great Balls of Fire?
The first annual Great Balls of Fire, yes.
I was there. I will say Big Bill may be one of the most improved wrestlers I've ever seen.
I, that is probable. I think about the Miz because even though the Miz still isn't exactly, the greatest worker in the world, you know, watching him in 2006 and watching him even a few years later is like night and fucking day.
The greatest trick that Claudio and Nick Nemeth ever pulled was having a good match while the Miz was in the general area that convinced people that the Miz was good for a minute.
I mean, it during the 2016 brand extension, The Miz and Dolph Ziggler had a few really good matches, and they had that one match where if Dolph lost, he had to retire. That was I don't know if great is the right word, 'cause I mean I haven't watched it since, so it might not hold up. That was a pretty damn good match.
I suspect because I'm sure that those two are good friends, and I suspect Dolph said, "Look, motherfucker, just do exactly what I tell you."
Plus, they've wrestled 10 million times. It's like if Dolph and Kofi were to go out there next week, even though they're not even in the same
Yeah.
company anymore, but if they were, it'd be like, these two have wrestled so many times they could do it in their sleep.
I was actually at the shows. I think it was 2014 or 2015. It was 2014. That The Miz beat Dolph for the Intercontinental title on the pay-per-view just so they could do the entrance with The Miz and Mizdow on Raw, and then Dolph won the title back on Raw. I was at both of those shows.
I don't even remember what show that would be. It was
It
like,
was Night of Champions 2014 in Nashville, and then Raw the next night in Memphis.
all right. I The only thing I remember about that show is, no, was that 20? Yeah, it was 2014. It was Cena versus Brock, which ended in a DQ when Seth ran in to try to cash in.
Yes.
Like literally, I could not even guess the rest of that show.
Uh, Gold and Stardust beat the Usos for the tag titles.
Wow.
I think Sheamus beat Cesaro in a US title match.
Wait, was that when
Uh
Roman burst his appendix?
yes.
Because he was supposed to wrestle Seth, I think.
Yes.
And so they brought back Moxley, who they did an injury angle with.
Yes. That's
Okay.
correct.
So I remember two things from that show.
That's yeah, it wasn't particularly memorable, I don't think.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things that aren't particularly memorable, tag team champions Bruise Brothers with Jim Cornette versus Mike Sampson and Robbie Eagle. I wrote before the match, Sampson and Eagle win by disqualification due to Bruise Brothers kicking too much ass. And it turns out I was right. Um, and also, despite winning this non-title match, Sampson and Eagle will almost assuredly not receive a championship match in the future. And as I have said repeatedly, this would be more interesting if we had not seen them do the same exact goddamn thing with Kevin Sullivan and the Night Stalker for 6 months.
I disagree that this is not memorable because I will still be bringing this up 6 months from now because they beat the tag team champions and they should, by all rights, be entitled to a championship match. And I'm just certain they're not going to get it. And I am going to beat that drum for the rest of the time.
I I think there's a chance we may not see them ever team again. Yeah.
Entirely possible. I don't know. They only have so many job guys to mix and match.
All right. So at the beginning of the show, they announced that Smoky Mountain champion Tracy Smothers would be on Down and Dirty with Dutch. Um, and then they announced that Primetime Brian Lee had won the Smoky Mountain title at Summer Blast. Well, they they now have a hole to fill because, and I don't know this for a fact, but I can almost guarantee you that a segment of Down and Dirty with Dutch was filmed with Smoky Mountain champion Tracy Smothers cutting a promo onto Primetime Brian Lee. However, that could not play because they aired the title change. Why couldn't they just air the title change next week? I don't know. That's not important, apparently. But so instead, and by the way, they didn't even like go like have Dutch do it like in front of like an empty arena like they've done before, or just do it backstage or something. Apparently, Dutch was not available when they realized they needed to refilm this, because now we're going to go to Down and Dirty with Brian Matthews, along with Tracy Smothers.
Hi, wrestling fans. I'm Brian Matthews for Smoky Mountain Wrestling. This segment of Smoky Mountain Wrestling was originally intended to be down and dirty with Dutch Mantell, and his guest was going to be the wild-eyed Southern boy Tracy Smothers. But
That's
fans,
exactly right, Brian. But I asked you to do this interview because Dutch Mantell makes everything a joke, and all he does is make fun, and everybody can tell that he's totally biased for the other side. Now, let me tell you something. As you can see right now, I'm a little bit naked because I don't have the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight title anymore. The new champion is Brian Lee with Tammy Fitch. Tammy Witch with a capital B. You know, you can look at my face and folks will say, hey, you look like you lost your best friend. Well, I feel like I do because everybody knows that I helped Brian Lee get started in this sport, and it's a shame to see what he's turned into. But you know, you can see who wears the pants in that family right there, because that little gold girl, Tammy Witch with a capital B, that no good two-bit tramp hussy, leads Brian around by the nose. You used to act like such a big stud, Brian. Now you're the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Champion, man. You had some kind of glove last time when we was in Johnson City, and man, you loaded, brother. You hit me. I've been in this sport 10 years. I ain't never been hit that hard in my life. It's loaded with something. I don't know what it is. All I can say is you are the champion. And I look around, and my pa used to tell me, he used to say, you know something, Tracy? He says, a bad woman can bring a good man down, just like a bad man can bring a good woman down. Well, you're both going down, because I got a little challenge for you, Brian. You come out here and you holler and you talk about how everybody's coal miners and how they're country bumpkins. Tammy Witch, you mock the way I talk and the way all the good folks in the Smoky Mountain area talk. Well, I got a little challenge for you, prima donna Brian Lee. How about a coal miner's glove match? Any of you folks know anything about out there? I know them coal miners do, because that coal miner's glove, brother, it's packed with lead. So what we do is we put it up on a 10-foot pole right there, and you climb up that pole. It's just like climbing an old tree right there after some walnuts right there, Big Brian. And whoever gets that glove, man, is fair game. And I'll guarantee you this, son, I'm a better climber than you. By the good grace of God and the support of the fans, just a little bit of lady luck. And that coal miner's glove match, if you accept, I'm going to be the next Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Champion. Thank you, Brian.
Okay, so now that I pressed to unmute myself. Okay. So first of all, what interesting comments do you think Tracy had to say on Down and Dirty with Dutch?
I am the champion, etc.
I bet he probably challenged prima donna Brian Lee to a coal miners club match then too.
And he said Tammy Witch with a capital B, I'm certain.
Yes. And then he probably thanked Dutch at the end, because you know he's a nice, polite Southern boy.
Yeah.
So, by the way, we should keep this in mind about Tracy not wanting to do this interview with Dutch Mantell, because if Dutch is still here for another, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months, so he better never again appear on Down and Dirty with Dutch, at least without them referencing this.
Bet you he does within the next 2 months.
I'm sure he does. They only have so many people that appear on this show. Otherwise, we're going to have to put Horner on this show, and no one wants that.
So it's I noticed the same things about this whole thing that you did, and I did make a note of it early on, and I was gonna make a thing out of it. And then this was like, I thought they covered it up well enough that I was just gonna let it go, because it's like the only thing is that like they couldn't feasibly have Bob and Dutch redo the intro where they said it. So I mean, I don't know. I was just like, it's a problem. It's a continuity error, and I was just gonna. Sometimes you got to pick your battles.
Yes, well, but isn't the whole point of this show to nitpick when things go wrong?
That's true. So I only have one other comment on this segment, and that's Tracy had on like an airbrush shirt with an American and Confederate flag on it. And I think it said American by birth, Southern by the grace of God. And I just wanted to point out that claiming to be a proud American while displaying the Confederate flag is like protesting against gay marriage with a dick in your mouth.
Well, if you're a man,
Tracy Smothers, to the best of my knowledge, is a man.
No, but I meant, if it's a woman sucking dick complaining about gay marriage, well, that's a little less hypocritical.
It's hypocritical, but I still wouldn't recommend it. That's uh unseemly public behavior.
Well, up next, we move from Johnson City to Knoxville. We go to the main event of Summer Blast, which was the Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette in a six-man tag against all three Armstrongs. Now, you might want to point out like the obvious, of the obviousness of this, because obviously Cornette is not going to be a regular participant in this. So it becomes a 3-on-2 handicap match at Vantage baby faces. And so I liked what they did here.
Yeah, me too.
Cornette had what appeared to be Tammy's hairspray and blinded Scott Armstrong. And so they had to take Scott Armstrong out of the match, which, hey, it leaves you with it's technically a handicap match, but it's not. It's, they gave you a tag team match with Bob and Steve versus the Heavenly Bodies. And by the way, doing commentary here was Phil Rainey, who I think he's a real newscaster, and I'm sure there were reasons why he couldn't just do pro wrestling, once a week. But he would have been so much fucking better once JR leaves in a couple of years than Chip Kessler. It's not even fucking funny.
Yeah.
So Bullet Bob gets the hot tag when Cornette was technically the legal man in the ring. And so after he takes care of Tom and Del Rey, he lays a beating on the Corny here. At one point, while Bob was kicking Cornette's ass, the Heavenly Bodies are double teaming Steve, which is just hilarious that they let their manager get his ass kicked while they're beat up the other Armstrong boy. The fans pop as Scott runs back in with a baseball bat and notably only chases Jimmy Del Rey to the back. Dr. Tom actually runs around the other side of the ring. He gets in while the referee is distracted. He wallops Bob with a chair and drags Corny's limp arm on top for the pin. First, two issues with that. First, Cornette's shoulders were also down. He didn't even turn over. And secondly, Steve Armstrong saw his dad being pinned and just walked away to go after Tom.
Oh, you paid closer attention to this than I did.
Really?
Yeah, I don't. Like I said, I was in a Starbucks watching this, so there may have been, something about that distracted me.
Plus, you were watching it on your phone. I'm watching it on a big ass television.
I was watching it on my iPad.
Okay, well, still iPad versus 60-inch television.
Yes.
If you would have seen the little things that I didn't, there would have been a problem here.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts on the match and the finish?
Oh, tremendous. Awesome. For what they needed to accomplish, I thought it was outstanding. And oh god, Cornette's going to be insufferable. And then we get to the promo, and it was outstanding. And then Bob retorted, and it was even more outstanding. Like this whole little scenario here with the clips of the match and the two backstage promos, not even might have been. These were the highlight of the show.
Well, indeed, and I mean, I'll be honest, it's a very, very low bar here because this, as you might be able to tell, and maybe Trey's got a different opinion than I do, but this was not a very good show at all.
I'll make my point about that later.
Yeah. But by the way, after the match or before the promo, Bob began assaulting Corny again, so Ron and Don Harris run down for immoral support. However, Bob drop kicks Corny, so he couldn't wallop him with the racket. Everyone hits the ring for a crazy 9-way fight, and Bob clears the ring with his baseball bat. So the baby faces stand tall, even though the heels got the win.
Indeed.
All right, so let's go to both promos. It's going to start as a Jim Cornette promo. I wrote the Heavenly Bodies and Jim Cornette, but it's Jim Cornette. And then that's going to segue into Bullet Bob.
Don't worry about a thing, Jim. We can take care of that. We'll get plastic surgery on that, but we did it. We beat the Armstrongs. We took that general at his own game, and we did it. How do you feel, Jim? How do you feel? I feel great. I've never felt better in my life. Yeah. My back hurts. Let me tell you something. Bullet Bob Armstrong. Bullet Bob Armstrong. I beat you, man. I not only sent you to the hospital at the Volunteer Slam, but I beat you in a wrestling match. I'm a bad man. I'm a bad man. Yes, I'm ready to take on anybody now. Come on. I don't care who it is. Hulk Hogan. Yeah. I don't care who it is, man. I'm ready to take him on because I beat you, Bob Armstrong. Yes, 1, 2, 3 in the Knoxville Coliseum, your second hometown. Yes. You were a Marine. Yes. You were a fireman. You've been a wrestler for 25 years. And Jim Cornette in a wrestling match. Yes. Beat you. 1, 2, 3. Yes. I'm the greatest. I'm the greatest of all time. Not only are you the greatest mind in professional wrestling, Jim, I've got to say you beat one of the legends. You beat one of the toughest professional wrestlers of all time. And you know what that makes you? One of the toughest men to ever step in the ring, Jim. We are proud to have you as our manager. You are the greatest, Jim. You are the greatest. The main event of WrestleMania, baby. It could happen. It could happen.
I've been in professional wrestling over a quarter of a century, and I've never had anybody do to me what you've done, Cornette. You put me in the hospital. You even beat me in a wrestling match, you blob. I've been wrestling the toughest men in the world today. I've took a lot of beatings, but I've always come back, and I ain't letting this one stand. I'm here to promise you right now that I'm going to find a way, Cornette. I'm going to find a way to get to you, and when I get my hands on you, boy, I'm going to chew you up, and I'm going to spit cellulite nails. One way or the other, you're going to get it. You've insulted my family. You called my son from Desert Storm a deserter. You nearly blinded Scott, but brother, I'm tell you what, the Armstrongs never die, brother. The old army, they say they don't die, they just smell that way, brother. Well, you got a good snort coming, because we're coming for you, Jimmy Cornette. It's going to be your day, baby, and it's going to be payday.
So, I mean, it was exactly what it needed to be, and exactly what it should be. Jim Cornette, by hook or by crook, he pinned Bullet Bob Armstrong. He had his hand raised, and Bullet Bob is embarrassed, and he is going to get his fucking revenge on this guy if it's the last thing he does.
Yeah, I know what happens because it's a pretty famous story, and it's outstanding, and we'll see it in the next month or so.
Yeah. By the way, I'm just happy Scott and Steve didn't say anything. And also, the Cornette promo was essentially Dr. Tom interviewing Cornette, which was tremendous, as was the comments about Hulk Hogan and WrestleMania. And I mean, we'll get to it later on in the episode, but yeah, like this was, I don't know whether or not they've agreed to it yet. But this is before Cornette shows up in the WWF.
Okay.
You know,
hold on, let me look just a second. This show aired the day before the TV taping where they debuted in the WWF. It was taped.
Thanks for jumping ahead on me here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that's what we were talking about.
Well, yeah, but I mean...
It was taped July 16th. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. They may have known. They probably knew.
He honestly, he did. He probably knew. But yeah, at this point, you know, on June 24th, 1993, to the television viewing audience, Jim Cornette has absolutely nothing to do with the World Wrestling Federation and Hulk Hogan and, you know, WrestleMania. And actually, it's funny because him and Hulk Hogan, I don't think have ever worked for the same promotion at the same time.
No.
And this is the closest they come because it's passing ships in the night.
Yeah, because by the time Hogan came back to the WWF, Cornette had gone back to run OVW.
I mean, you can say they're both getting a paycheck from the same company at that point, but still. And he was fired from TNA like a month before they announced Hogan was coming in.
Oh yeah, I just forget about that whole time period somehow.
Oh, lordy, lordy. Yeah. Here's a question, and I mean, how dare we go off topic? I know, but Hogan comes in after Jeff Jarrett gets caught being with Karen Angle, after Karen and Kurt had already divorced, and that led to Dixie kicking Jarrett out of the company essentially. Um, if that didn't happen, or if, Dixie and everyone in the world realized that two grown ass adults who are both single, wanted to be together and it's not that big of a fucking deal here, but do you think they would have still brought Hogan in? Because they took out everybody that was associated with Jarrett. BG James, Savio Vega, Jim Cornette. They were all Jeff Jarrett people, and they all got the boot. And then they immediately bring in Hogan and Bischoff.
Yes, absolutely. Uh, uh, if if they had said we're bringing in Hogan and Bischoff, and Cornette and Jarrett had protested, I don't know. Jarrett might have been able to stay, but like they would have just fired Cornette anyway, I imagine.
I think Cornette would have quit. Because like, it was not only that, they also
Yeah.
brought back Ed Ferrara at like the same time.
Oh, God damn it.
It's like, and I will say this because I met Ed Farrar once. He's a super nice person. And I'm like, thankfully, I never had to work with the guy and he never mocked my best friend's, crippling disease. So I don't have an issue with him like that. But by the way, Vince Russo, I also met, is a dick in real life too. I know you'll be shocked to hear that.
No,
But
I don't doubt
yeah,
that.
it's
Yeah,
like
I was
he
thinking
was,
about. I'm sorry,
Mhm.
finish.
I was gonna say, he was just so like it was at WrestleCon. It's like, okay, it's like it's a meet and greet. You have to at least pretend like you want to be there, and he did not want to be there. And actually, I was there when he confronted Lance Storm because I was talking to Lance and he came running up and complained about Lance complaining about him.
Jeez. Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
I was thinking about earlier today as I saw a tweet that was like if you could make any wish like without rules over all of wrestling history, what would you do? And I thought about it and I thought about it and I wonder what wrestling history would look like if Jim Ross had gotten that job instead of Eric Bischoff in early '93.
I know where you're going, but at that point, he was never going to get that job. And I think this was before you came on the show, but like this, like he was so linked with Watts that he could not have stayed with the company when they got rid of Watts. Because like
Okay,
it
that's
it would
valid.
it would not have been a good situation. Like because I mean I don't know. Maybe they could have made it work, but it's like yeah, it's like I have my doubts anyway. I was thought you were gonna say imagine a wrestling world where the magazine writer for the WWF didn't get put on the writing team.
Uh,
It
I don't know.
like because here's the thing. Stone Cold Steve Austin was still going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. The Rock was still going to be The Rock, you
Yeah.
know.
See, that's the thing. I do not think the Attitude Era changes much, if at all. I do think without Russo, there was a chance to still save WCW.
I don't know. I'm not gonna say, oh, they would have went and still lost $68 million or whatever, because spent Russo encouraged the spending of a lot of money that he really shouldn't have, but he also got stuck with a lot of shitty contracts. Like when you look at, because the contracts have come out with who was it? The racial discrimination lawsuit, the Sonny Ono lawsuit. And like they had Hogan's contract until like 2003, I think. Nash had an absurd contract. They all had absurd contracts. Like fucking Stevie Ray was getting like $750,000. Like, no offense to Stevie Ray, I bet he's a really nice guy. But, all the crap Jim Cornette gives about AEW wrestlers, quote unquote, being overpaid, I've never heard him once complain about, fucking Stevie Ray and Scott Norton getting close to $1 million in 1999 from WCW. Like, that's just an absurd, obscene contract for two people on their place on the card.
Was Norton getting that much?
Yeah.
Wow. So he was getting that and the New Japan deal.
Which
He probably
is
did all
just
right for
insane.
himself.
I know. It's like, goddamn. Um, and like, I don't know. It's like they they were digging themselves a pretty deep fucking hole. Like, I don't know what could have saved the company, but or if anything, because I think at that point the cast or the die had already been cast because they'd already lost Jericho. And to be honest, without Russo, you would have kept Sullivan probably in charge or put Sullivan in charge at something. And Benoit and company were probably still going to jump
Maybe,
because,
maybe.
eh,
Oh.
like, I don't know. It's like there's a lot of what ifs, and it's like, I don't fucking know. Like, what if Chris Benoit never got demoted from the Four Horsemen to Raw?
I understood that reference. God, that woman
Oh my
was Greta Van Susteren.
No, no, that was Nancy Grace.
Nancy Grace. I'm sorry. I apologize to Greta Van Susteren. I don't know why I grabbed your name. Yeah, Nancy Grace. Oh my, that has not been the only time that she was fucking stupid.
To be fair, it's like that was the first episode they did where she was a fucking idiot. But she did her research and you watch the later episodes, she was she was knowledgeable about what she was talking about once she actually looked into the subject. And it wasn't but it's like it was hard, borderline impossible to get over that moment where she talked about him being demoted from the Four Horsemen to Raw.
You
I, I
know,
don't even
I
I don't remember who she said that to because I can't even picture the response in my head.
yeah, I don't remember either. I was thinking, I sometimes several months ago I read somebody tweeted, and I think about this all the time now. Every Chris Benoit match, even like the most nothing TV match, has at least one spot where you go, that's what did it.
Yep,
Hmm.
it is very difficult to watch a Chris Benoit match.
It is. And I actively didn't for probably 5 years after it. I don't know. Now I'm just my soul is so numb to everything that I don't really care anymore. But there was a
I, I
long period that I just
I
couldn't.
I didn't quite make it that long. I think I made it 2 years because like I at that point when WrestleMania was still in their mid 20s, I would do an annual WrestleMania rewatch, and it was probably 2009 when I could finally watch the shows incomplete because otherwise I just skip all of Benoit's matches. And
Oh,
I don't
I
fucking know.
have a curious because I was just thinking So, last week, week a week ago Saturday, Konosuke Takeshita, Will Ospreay, and Ricochet had one of the greatest triple threat matches I've ever seen, and that most people have ever seen. The only thing, the only thing on that level is the Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels three-way from TNA Unbreakable in 2005. But I was thinking, and I'm not curious enough to go out of my way to watch it. And I'm sure for some reason I'll watch the show again someday. But how does that WrestleMania 23 way hold up? Because at the time I thought it was fantastic.
I haven't watched it in a while myself, but I mean, even the last time I saw it, that was still just a fantastic fucking match. But like that was also the first marathon WrestleMania as they've gotten to be known as. And it's like that crowd, it's easy to forget that crowd did not lose their shit for that match, or at least they didn't lose their shit for Benoit actually winning, but it's like it was such a great moment. But, the match itself, I remember, being fantastic. And that was, at the time, considered like the best three-way ever.
I have very specific memory of the night of the show. I didn't let's see, how old would I have been? Like 16, 17, and I didn't even have like the ability to buy pay-per-views. So I'm on like a fucking website on my dial-up internet. Yes, I still had dial-up until like 2005. And I was just I wanted, because me, like a lot of people who are our kind of wrestling nerds, like Chris Benoit was at the time my favorite wrestler ever, and I wanted him to win so bad. And I just remember sitting on that fucking website, just hitting refresh, refresh, refresh for
Mhm.
25 minutes or whatever it was.
And part of it too is like it's a three-way, and the next pay-per-view's in Edmonton. So it's like, okay, so Triple H is obviously going to retain because the fucking Reign of Terror, and he's going to lose the belt in Edmonton. And
Yeah,
thankfully,
would
that's
not
not
have
what
been.
happened.
Yeah, it's weird. Like they had two really great triple threat matches. And the only time that Triple H and Benoit ever had a particularly good singles match was like the one at No Mercy 2000. Like none of the ones during that 2004 run were anything special at all.
No. And it's like this was 2004, so the year after Triple H spent a year feuding with fucking Kevin Nash, Scott Steiner, and Bill Goldberg, all of whom he insisted that he had to wrestle a fucking 20-minute main event match with. And then, shock among shocks, the matches weren't very good. And then it's like, okay, now I'm going to wrestle fucking Shawn Michaels and Chris Benoit all year. It's like, you know what? All of a sudden, Triple H looks like the greatest worker of all time.
Yeah, that's we could do a whole fucking show just about my hatred of Triple H.
It's hilarious because Triple H's WrestleMania record is not that great, but the two times he should have lost, of course, he fucking won. The Booker T match where he did the promo about how black people don't win world titles, and the
Mhm.
Orton match in Houston.
God, that was so bad. Oh my God, what a piece of shit. And
Like the
whatever the
first four,
opposite, whatever the opposite of your favorite wrestler is, Triple H is my that.
what, and it's like I don't want to say it drives me crazy that now he's beloved and everyone forgets all that shit. But it's like it does kind of drive me crazy that it's now been so long that people forget that he buried and held down people that, maybe deserve might be a strong word, but did not deserve to be buried in such a manner.
I ain't forgot none of
Yeah.
that shit.
Yeah. It's like I will never forget, and I think we talked about it on this show. I will never forget the time that he was feuding with Carlito in the wake of the signature pharmacy thing. And one night on Raw, Carlito, and Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch, who were the tag team champions. They did a triple team on Triple H and outran Paul London and Brian Kendrick,
Oh God.
who were yeah,
Yes.
who were feuding with Cade and Murdoch at the time, and they ran out for the save. It sounds like if that's all you hear, you're like, hey, they're trying to raise 5 people because Carlito meant shit at the time. So they're trying to raise Carlito, Lance Cade, Trevor Murdoch, and now Paul London and Brian Kendrick, and they're using Triple H to, bring them up to a little bit more of a higher level. That sounds like a good idea, and it does sound like a good idea. Trey, do you want to tell people what happened next?
He fucking pedigreed the 2 guys that just made the save. I'm still fucking mad about it. That's been I've lived like 2 lives since then, and I'm still fucking mad about that.
I wasn't even just London Kendrick. Didn't he also like pretty much make his own save on Carlito, Cade, and Murdoch too?
I don't even remember that part. Probably.
Yeah. And
here is my overall assessment of Triple H as a wrestler. He had all of Shawn Michaels' entitlement with half of Shawn Michaels' ability.
and it's not to say he wasn't very good, because he was. He was very good. But I always look at how do you rank the best workers of all time? I always look at how did they wrestle, how were their matches against the same people? And if you ask the vast majority of smart fans who was a better wrestler, Triple H or John Cena, you ask 100 smart fans, I bet 99 of them will tell you Triple H. And I will be the one person who argues John Cena because John Cena had much better matches with the same limited workers than Triple H did. John Cena
Cena
had
got
three John Cena had 3 big matches, including 2 pay-per-views with the fucking Great Khali. And they were like the best matches of Great Khali's career.
He got a much better match out of the Great Khali than Triple H did.
Umaga. And I'm not saying Umaga was limited because we've talked about Umaga having great matches with like Jeff Hardy before, but like Triple H wrestled Umaga half a dozen times. Their matches sucked. Cena wrestled
That
Umaga half a dozen times. They were all pretty fucking great.
that last man standing match is one of the best matches in WWE history.
Yeah, and I hate last man standing matches, but that one is one that I would rewatch to this day.
Whenever I think about Triple H's run throughout the aughts, the term that comes to mind is self-masturbatory.
I remember a story. There's a bunch of stories I remember, like when Umaga was getting new gear made, and it was going to be with like because his gear was black, but it had like his face designed on the side, or like his face paint or whatever, and they were doing it in green, and Triple H and Shawn Michaels got all pissy because he's wearing DX colors now. It's like fuck you, dude. Um, or the time when and I don't remember which writer it was, it doesn't really matter, but one of the writers came up to Triple H with the script for Raw that night, and the script was that Triple H was going to get laid out, and it's like, oh really? What page is that on? And like, oh whatever, and he flips to it and he rips it out of the script, and like, well now it's not in the script tonight, and it's like, you know all these other people who get the reputation of being a dick, well-deserved reputation for being a dick that never really goes away. And Triple H, because he got to play Ring of Honor booker for, 6 years or whatever, he's now beloved and everyone forgets everything he did before this.
Do you know who was a better wrestler and a better promo and altogether a more enjoyable wrestling personality than Triple H?
A lot of people, but who?
Mr. Ron Wright.
Oh God, yes. Mr. Ron Wright. And I almost forgot what the hell we were doing on this show. We are almost done, by the way. But let's go to Mr. Ron Wright, who's got something to say.
Fans, here we are with the legendary Ron Wright, who I understand still has a $20,000 bounty on the head of Tracy Smothers. Is that right, Mr. Wright?
Yes, sir, and I'll tell you, I'm so happy I'm just about completely out of this wheelchair. I may get up and walk on water when it's over. Well, let me tell you something. It looks like none other than prime time Brian Lee's going to go out here and take care of that man and collect that $20,000 for me, and I'll be happy as people's ever seen in their life. But let me tell you right now, we're fixing to get down here. You know, my dirty white boys done got that TV title back. We're fixing to get right down here and defend that title, make us another $1,000 richer. Just tell them to ring a bell and get the match on with. We're ready, brother.
All right, fans, you heard it right there, Mr. Ron Wright. He says the dirty white boy is ready, and he's got somebody to collect that bounty. All right, let's go to the...
I love Mr. Ron Wright, and it's like I'd kind of forgotten this whole bounty business. Because like they mentioned it a month ago, and then it just kind of, they did a couple things with it. They did a couple of matches, but then it just kind of went away.
Yeah, when it came up, I was like, wait, what? Why? Why is that still a thing?
I mean, I guess technically when this was taped, Tracy was still the Smoky Mountain champion. And yeah. But yeah, it is getting going with my favorite moment in Smoky Mountain Wrestling history is coming up. It's only a few months away, and I can't wait.
Cool. I don't know what it is. I'm excited.
When you see it, there will be no doubt.
Okay.
Like you will not question when you see it. But also the moment that legitimately made me cry the first time I saw it, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but like legitimate tears the first time I saw something is coming up, and I'm kind of curious if it'll still bring the same emotion the second time.
Oh wow. I now I really want to know.
I promise we'll get to it.
Yeah.
But for now, we go to the ring and it's Beat the Champ TV title, day old pizza holder, dirty white boy with Mr. Ron Wright versus Tim Horner, which, means
hold
of
on.
course I get.
Hold on. I just want to say at this point that over the weekend, last weekend, when you were watching the show, you had indicated to me that you were down on this show. And up to this point, I didn't get it. Like, I thought the show was pretty decent. And then this fucking main event, oh my God.
I'll be honest, I hadn't really been a fan of a lot of this show, even up until this point. And then we get to this point, and man, oh man, Maddie. So thunder rolls and the lightning strikes. And I wrote that, these two feuded for 5 months. So it's like they're obviously they can work together pretty well, I bet. But then we don't get that far, do we? Instead, Horner limps to the ring and cuts a promo saying he pulled a muscle while putting his boots on. Because, that's what Dutch Mantel said last week before his TV title match with Bobby Blaze. But Horner has a suitable replacement, the Underdog. And so now we have Beat the Champ TV title holder, Dirty White Boy versus the Underdog.
He even said the fucking line. Oh my God. We're lucky that nobody gave a shit about copyright in the early 90s.
Oh, God. So we aren't even pretending that the Underdog is anybody but Bobby Blaze. Like, it's like even last week we're like, okay, it's Dirty White Boy, but like, hey, we're going to play along a little bit. It's like we're not even pretending at this point. And this is at least the third match they've had on TV together. And
in the last 5 weeks.
and none of them have been very good at all.
Well,
Like
this one sure as
we
fuck wasn't.
Yeah, we talked about the first match they had. It was like a 5 or 6 minute match where White Boy was in control for 5 minutes and 59 seconds of it, and then lost on a fluke. And then the second match when you know what Bobby Blaze was positively adequate and defending himself. But then it's like this match was pretty goddamn close to the first one. It was very like even though it's like I'm like okay, Bobby Blaze is gonna win the belt back here. Like that just like why else would they do this, if that's not the end game here? But that's apparently not what happened here. Um this match was so dull that I was talking to you about Battle of the Belts on Facebook during this match. Um
I'm the Kyle O'Reilly and Kazuchika Okada had a better match than this.
no way.
You know what? Lance Archer and Brian Cage had like a 2 minute squash match that was way the fuck better than this.
Oh, I don't doubt it because like honestly, White Boy is great at a lot of things, but 6 minute squash matches are not his fucking thing, and he keeps being put in them.
Oh,
Um,
I wish this was a 6 minute squash match. This match went 9.5 fucking minutes. For eight and
and
a
then,
half minutes, for eight and a
Mhm.
half minutes, Dirty White Boy is just beating this geek's ass up and down the ring just to drive home the fact that Bobby Blaze is a fucking joke. Whips his ass for 8.5 minutes. Bobby Blaze finally threatens to make a comeback. Ron White starts ringing the bell like he's fucking Dick Togo in a House of Torture match in 2024. And the Dirty White Boy DDTs Bobby Blaze a couple of times. And the referee stops the match. And the worst part of this is I'm a fucking stopwatch nerd. And I couldn't discern between the bell the referee called for and the bell that was Ron White fucking around. So
see,
about 9:30 is what I got.
I don't think that like the match continued. I think the referee ended the match when Mr. Ron Wright rang the bell, even though it was obvious that it wasn't, the bell keeper who rang it. I was under the impression that it was just, the referee ended the match because the bell rang.
Okay, no, he did signal to stop the match after the last DDT.
Well, either fucking way, the match has no finish. And maybe Blaze wins by DQ. Maybe it's a no contest. It doesn't matter. Either way, by the rules of the TV title, White Boy retains the title and wins $1,000, because, in order to actually lose the belt, you have to be pinned or forced to submit, which, of course, always brings up the question, if wrestling is a shoot, why wouldn't Dirty White Boy just the bell rings and he punches the referee? He's gonna
So
get disqualified, but he retains the title and gets $1,000.
so just for the sake of pedantry, I did read this as a referee stop win for the Dirty White Boy. But either way, it doesn't fucking matter. And what does matter is that this was 10 minutes of my life that I will never get back.
Well, Tammy Witch with a capital B attempted to make your day a little bit better because she wore a bow tie during the local promos. And I don't know why, but this made me swoon a little bit. And it honestly reminded me about how I fell in love with Sonya Deville when she started wearing suits on TV every single week. Like somehow her wearing a bow tie was just very, very nice to look at.
Hey, you like what you like.
Yes. And that's not to say that, uh, anybody wearing a bow tie will look good by comparison. Because, I mean, hey, I can wear a suit and I don't look as good as Sonya Deville does.
I don't look as good in a suit as Sonya Deville does.
I'm sorry, Trey, but it's true.
And
But go ahead.
the big, I fucking hated this match. It sucked, and I thought it was bad, and I didn't like it. But like, okay, I can't say that it was exactly pointless. And while I don't necessarily think that what you were trying to accomplish was worth trying to accomplish, it accomplished something. But there are so many ways that you could have made that point a lot more efficiently.
Very true. All right. So because, the show is not, going balls to the walls enough yet, let's end the show by going to our old friend White Lightning Tim Horner, who needs promo time, apparently.
White Lightning Tim Horner, I tell you, against the Dirty White Boy, you gave Blaze his opportunity anyway.
I sure did, but you remember last week, I gave Candido something he wasn't looking for, too.
Oh, man, that Chris Candido, no doubt about that. I think he was surprised, and he seemed to be shocked.
Well, the crybaby came in here, and he claiming to be world champion or some WWA.
Right.
What's this?
And here comes the WWA champion, Chris Candido.
Tim Horner, I feel sorry for you, man. I'm embarrassed for you. 1 week, last week you pulled my trunks on TV. A few weeks ago, you beat me with the chain, but I still got the win. Then they reversed the decision. And I'll tell you what, I was ready to stay here at Smoky Mountain Wrestling and beat you up Jersey style. I was going to beat you, shove you in the back of my car, and then bury you underneath the Meadowlands right next to Jimmy Hoffa back up in Jersey. But I'll tell you what, I'm really getting sick and tired of these people calling me crybaby. I'm going to take my belt. I'm going to take my belt, and I'm going home. What do you think about that? I'm going home.
You could have went home a long time ago, for all I care.
Well, I'm going.
Just going. I just like somebody like that.
Oh, from behind, Candido attacking Horner from behind. Hey, and he's got a bottle of milk, a baby bottle, right into the face of Tim Horner. Candido just squeezing that milk out of that baby bottle. Dutch, he's putting it now into the mouth of Tim Horner.
Well, Candido said, hey, leave me out of this, guys, but he's sticking that bottle trying to get it right in his
mouth. Horner fighting, trying to get out of that.
Well, he called him a crybaby. And he tried to put a bottle in his mouth.
When Horner gets up, Candido leaves, and that's going to do it for this week.
Let me tell you something, Bob Collins. When he first came here, I thought it was a joke. That's right, Candido. I thought it was a joke, but it's serious now. You don't come out here and humiliate me in front of my good friend Bob, in front of all my wrestling fans. You should have left. You should have took your belt and left, because after this, when I get through with you, you're going to wish you had.
Ooh, fans, that's going to wrap it up for this week.
All right. So Horner comes out, and this was not a bad Tim Horner promo, which automatically makes it a good promo for Tim Horner. And then we're joined by the WWA World Heavyweight Champion, Chris Candido, and he said he wanted to beat Horner Jersey style, but he's sick of the fans calling him a crybaby, so he's just going to go home. And of course, Horner is a dumbass, so he turns his back on him, and Candido lays him out with a belt to the back of the head, and then he takes a baby bottle and sprays milk all over Horner's face, and then runs off. And then Horner cuts a promo because he's angry that Candido humiliated him in front of his good friend Bob Caudle. I would like to point out that Bob Caudle has never once agreed that he is this man's friend. This show sucked.
I wrote ending this show with a Horner promo is just putting a bow on top of a really shitty present.
And it's a bad show when Tim Horner cuts a promo and it's not the worst thing on the show.
This so I've been watching for 5 months ish. I think that underdog match was the single worst match that I've seen on this show.
Honestly, like it may be the worst thing since the beginning of the show. At least the worst match. So, I mean, Horner had a string of promos that were just one of a kind. But yeah.
Ugh. Is this
Um,
is this a taste of things to come as this company uh goes down the drain over the next 2 years?
I mean, I'd say no because like the company's going to get a lot better, and I mean, this is still a lot better than it was last year. But it's like, they're going to have some bad shit. Like in a few months, we're going to have the fucking Mummy. Like that's going to be amazing.
Prince
Um,
Karras.
yes, with Jim Mitchell as his manager, and then Jim
I like
Mitchell
Jim
gets
Mitchell.
fired.
Why did Jim Mitchell get fired? I don't know the story.
I'd have to go back and re-listen to Corny, but I think it was basically the same reason Paul E got fired from WCW by cutting a promo that was way too inside. And
Oh.
and come on, it takes skill to get fired from this company for cutting a bad promo. Uh,
Oh. Yeah.
but yeah, it, we when we get done all 200 episodes, if we were to do a bottom 10 episodes, this would more than likely be in it.
I I mean, like, sir, because I didn't hate the show. Like, I didn't hate the whole show. If you cut the last if you cut the last 15 minutes off of the show, I probably would have defended it a lot more.
Hey, if you stop counting goals when the other team's ahead, they would have won.
If do we need to stop counting the votes while the guy who's going to lose is ahead?
Of course. All right. So that was what, episode 78. So 78 down, 122 to go. But before we wrap things up, let's tell you what else is happening in the world of wrestling. So remember when I said that Jim Cornette hadn't been in the WWF yet? Well, as Trey was nice enough to spoil for us, Jim Cornette debuted in the WWF this week, debuting as Yokozuna's American spokesperson, and it would also lead to the Heavenly Bodies challenging the Steiner brothers for the WWF Tag Team titles at SummerSlam. Um, and it's notable because this isn't just them bringing in Jim Cornette and the Heavenly Bodies. They are making a point to say that it's Jim Cornette and Heavenly Bodies from Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And they put over Smoky Mountain quite often. Like they will bring up storylines like Vince, I think at SummerSlam talks about Bullet Bob Armstrong. Um, and yeah.
Yeah.
But in The Observer, Dave said for the second time, hell is frozen over. And the first time, of course, being when Lawler debuted back in December. Cornette added a clause to the Luger Yokozuna contract saying this is Luger's only title shot, which, according to Dave, pretty well guarantees the finish.
You know, the funny thing is to hear Cornette tell the story, he also assumed that.
I mean, I was a dumb fan back in 1993, and I figured Luger was winning the title too. Like it was painfully obvious. But
I
no
watched
one's
that show like pretty early in my fandom, like before I was on the internet and really knew much. Like I was learning wrestling history in bits by like renting old tapes from video stores back when those were still a thing. So I watched this show fairly early on, and even knowing none of the context, but just watching what happened and how it played out, even I was like, "What the fuck was that?"
why is he celebrating losing or
Yes.
not winning the
Oh my.
title?
Oh my god. So stupid. And by the way, listeners, I did suggest to Arya that we do a bonus show reviewing SummerSlam, and she put the kibosh on it. So I tried.
I don't know. I don't remember that one. I know I have put the kibosh on a lot of a lot of things we talked about. So who knows? Maybe now that I have time, maybe we can actually do some of it. But yeah. Um, by the way, both Terry Funk and Jerry Jarrett interviewed for the head booker of WCW this week, and a decision is expected to be made this week over whether either of them will get the job. You know,
Neither
spoiler alert,
the
neither of them get the job. Um,
oh
so in a situation that we brought up last week and it's continuing to heat up, the impending explosion of WCW and the NWA. The NWA sent letters regarding the unauthorized title changes from Barry Windham to Ric Flair and the impending title change from Ric Flair to Rick Rude. At this point, the NWA board of directors is down to two people as Bill Watts officially resigned in the past week. And among the issues are the NWA members, the other companies are trying to get dates on Ric Flair because theoretically, since he is the NWA champion, these indie companies are allowed, in theory, to get dates on the world champion. And WCW is not even entertaining that idea.
there's an alternate universe out there where Ric Flair as NWA champion appeared for Eastern Championship Wrestling.
They're going to say wrestling on a Coraluzzo show, which would be something too.
Oh my god, I have finally started reading Todd Gordon's book in the past several days. I'm about a third of the way through it. And holy shit, Dennis Coraluzzo. This motherfucker was like he was calling the buildings and acting like a concerned citizen that didn't want this garbage wrestling in his community. And at one point, I think at the ECW arena, they catch this motherfucker and two of his stooges letting the air out of people's tires in the parking lot.
I haven't read Todd's book, but I did hear that story before.
Jeez.
By the way, so you're our New Japan historian, and so I want to know if you ever heard of this show that I'm about to describe. So New Japan has announced the show for August 29th, 1993, of course, at the Tokyo Prince Hotel Ballroom. And to make this show unique, first of all seats are $275, which was unheard of in 1993 money. And for your ticket, you not only get to watch a four-match wrestling show, but you get to have dinner with the wrestlers. And then after the four-match show is a fashion show, a bridal fashion show, with the male wrestlers modeling tuxedos and other groom wear, and women's wrestlers, including Manami Toyota, modeling bridal wear. And I did look it up. This show definitely happens, but I cannot find pictures or video of it.
I don't see anything about airing information. I do see the results.
Yeah. This
was actually probably like if they weren't just in fucking house show mode, these are probably some pretty good matches.
Well, I mean, hey, for $275, like I didn't see when I looked it up in Cage Match, I didn't see the attendance, but like I would be hoping for some pretty fucking good matches here if I paid all that money to go to that show.
My sources indicate that the attendance was 700.
I mean, it's a hotel ballroom, so I guess that's pretty good.
Yeah, probably.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this week's show. We somehow went almost 2 hours, even though we didn't seem to have 2 hours of material.
Well, we did just shit on Triple H for like 20 minutes.
And then we would probably still be shitting on Triple H, but you brought us around to talking about Mr. Right.
He is Mr. Right, isn't he?
Yes, he is. And not Lance Wright either. Ron Wright.
No.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's show. Trey, plug the Oh My God cast.
ohmygodcast.com, the Oh My Godcast and ECW retrospective. New episode dropped on Tuesday. It's I don't know, kind of an interesting episode because like we're getting to the point. We are in the last week of July, first week of August. They tape TV in the middle of May for shows that started airing the first week of June. The next tapings are like the week after the second show. They are fucking stretching for content. So these shows are a whole lot of nothing. Incredibly, we managed to find stuff to talk about. We got a show out of it, but yeah.
I was worried you were going to have to.
Some very lean shows that we had a conversation about. I'm trying to think. The only thing I remember is there's a problematic Eddie Gilbert promo that we had a little conversation about. That's kind of the main thing. And I'll except for the first episode, every episode title has been a quote from somewhere in the shows. And I just know anytime Road Warrior Hawk is on the show, anytime he gets a microphone, I know I'm about to get my episode title.
That sounds promising.
Yeah. But yeah, ohmygodcast.com. Give us a listen. I'd love to get our listenership up into the double digits.
Yes. Well, for now, I want to thank everyone for listening. I hope you all enjoyed it. Check out the Oh My God cast. Buy my book, God damn it. And we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Bye.